Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. Today, I'm going to interview Alan Harris, the principal and founder of Waymark Consulting. I start off by asking Alan, what was it that motivated him to get into business? And I think you're going to find his honest answer very refreshing. Let's take a listen.
It's a bit of a long story, but like many entrepreneurs, it started out as out of necessity. I went through school, I studied accounting and finance. I got into a large corporate job, huge multinational company, and very quickly understood I was not suited for this world. I was not suited for, climbing the ranks. I wasn't suited for the game of a big corporate environment. And sort of from that day decided I needed to carve my own path. So maybe that's a little bit of my nature as a contrarian, a little bit of a rebel. I'm not sure, but I knew that was going to be the path for me. And so pretty quickly, I started exploring opportunities to begin testing the waters on my own. I started running my first company concurrently with my full time job, like many entrepreneurs do, and had the opportunity through some of my own and some of my not my own decision to be able to dedicate myself full time to that. And really, it's been a journey that I thought, well, this will be a season. And I look back and now it's been 10 years and I'm making a life of it now. I don't know if maybe I'm like some, but it wasn't necessarily a calling from an early age that I knew I was going to be a business owner, that I knew I was going to start my own thing, but more out of, an understanding and a feeling that if I was going to be happy and successful, it was only going to be if it was me doing something that I believed in, was passionate about, and was going to be able to kind of put my heart and soul into. Um, and so that's why I did it, and that's why I've stuck around. Ultimately, is that I'm okay with the risk. I'm okay with the ambiguity and the uncertainty, which is the trade off, as you know, about being an entrepreneur. You never really know where your next meal is coming from. Some months or years, but that's the path that I took, and I'm learning that's just the normal at this point.
I had to chuckle a little bit when Alan said, I might not be like other entrepreneurs. In Milwaukee Business Coach, we've coached hundreds of different entrepreneurs, and many of them have started out the same way Alan did. They just decided they weren't cut out for corporate life. Corporate life wasn't really serving the need or the energy that they were bringing, or it wasn't solving the problem that was out there. That's a fact. That's part of my own story. It was just the path that seemed like the next right move to be able to do. It was time to go ahead and make that happen. And you have to have the courage to go ahead and take that leap. Alan mentioned that he was working two jobs at one time. He was working his W-2 job while he was still starting up his business. That is a normal progression. And obviously, he has since transitioned. He said it was over a decade now working for himself, but it was a transition. So, what does it take? Listeners to this podcast will know we're not encouraging you just to jump out there and hope that it all works out, because hope's not a strategy. No, you have to count the cost, talk to your trusted support, come up with a plan, and then go ahead and start making it work. Dive off that diving board. Most people are ready far before they actually think they are. Go ahead and get started, see what it's like, and take action. If you have any questions, we're here to help. Reach out to us. This next part is pretty funny, and I think you're going to identify with Alan. Alan talks with his trusted support, and his trusted support basically calls his bluff. Let's listen to that story.
I've been working with a mentor this year, and I have been working on various projects. And throughout this year, I'll see an interesting opportunity and I'll apply. And I've interviewed for jobs. And he finally just cut straight to the point with me a couple of months ago. And he said, I think you need to just be honest with yourself. You're never getting a job. Just be honest with yourself. You're wasting time. Just don't. You're never getting a job. It's never going to work. It's time to forge your own path. And part of that was the beginning of Waymark.
Look, here's the huge value that trusted support can bring to us. A lot of times they know us. They know when we're just fooling ourselves. The interesting part about going into business for yourselves, and it affects lots of different parts of our business, and I'm sure it affects us when we're working in other jobs as well, and even in our personal life. But we have a propensity to tell ourselves a story that we don't actually believe. We're BSing ourselves. And the value of having trusted support is someone can be in and say, look, let's cut to the chase and quit fooling ourselves. Sometimes just frankly, we need someone to kick us in the butt and say, I don't understand why we're beating around the bush here. This is clearly what you want to do. You're trying to come up with 15 excuses not to do it. Look, go out there, go start, go get it done. If you don't have some trusted support in your life from a business standpoint, go out and just start meeting people. Go out and meet people, see who you connect with, see who knows you well, see who you're clicking with, and just bounce ideas off of them. You don't have to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. That's not what we're doing here. But you're revealing a part of yourself, that internal struggle on some of those things that you really know you need to do to be successful, but you're coming up with a billion excuses why you're not going to do it. Those people who help you move forward don't just affirm you at every step, but say, look, let's quit fooling yourselves. When are you going to get this started? When are you going to go do it? Because this is what you're supposed to be doing, is really, really key. This is something oftentimes we're honored to do as coaches at Milwaukee's Business Coach. We want to help people say, you know what, we've evaluated where you're at, and I want to give you some honest feedback. This honest feedback may be challenging, but oftentimes it's that push that you need in order to be successful. So I went on to ask Alan more about what is Waymark Consulting and what did he decide to do when he wanted to combine his experiences, his talents, and his purpose into a business. Let's listen.
This has really been born out of a lot of the things I've done has really been born out of seeing an opportunity in the network that I'm in, people identifying some of the projects that I work on and say, hey, can you come over here and help me do this? And so what I'm really focusing on for this next part is taking a lot of the learnings that I've had as a small business, as an entrepreneur, as a growing business, and helping other small and growing businesses unlock potential in their own business through improved business process design, systems, controls, tools, and automation. Everybody knows right now that times are tight, labor is tight, and we have to work really smart. And so, what I'm focusing on is being able to come in, work with small businesses, and help them get more out of their business by improving their design of their process or implementing the right tools to help them kind of grease the skids on their growth plans.
I love this. So many of us launch our businesses because we've learned something along the way in our journey that we want to share. And not only that we want to share it, but that we identify it's a gap that others don't necessarily have. That's a key. We've identified a problem. That's an opportunity. Let's reach out there and go get it. That's ultimately why I started Milwaukee Small Business Coach a number of years ago. As of this recording, along with my partner and wife, Kate, we have 46 years of business and industry experience. And I've personally started and run 4 different businesses and managed another. There's opportunities that show up there in expertise. And when you look at it, when there's a gap, that's a spot where we can step in and serve. There's a service we can do. There's a product that we can produce and come up with. These ideas have to be really grabbed onto. So Alan's seizing on his experience. A lot of times the impetus to be able to move forward is rooted in something that's happened a long time ago and has stayed with us, a recurring pattern. For me, when I started a retail business when I was 15, I really wish I'd had a me to help me that time ago so that I didn't have to go through it alone, that everything wasn't an experience that didn't have any support, any understanding, or any guidance. That's the mission that I'm on. And Alan's on a somewhat a similar mission. I think many of us started for very similar reasons that Alan did. So let's give Alan a way to go. Kudos for being able to see that gap and going ahead and embracing it. I went on to ask Alan, what does he do in order to stay sharp in his area of expertise? Let's listen to his answer.
There's going to be a combination of things. I do a lot of reading personally, but it's also finding other people in the industry, learning about from what they've been doing. Some of this has been learning the hard way. I think we've spent in the last year and a half really trying to get our legs under us from a digital marketing perspective through partnering with people who have expertise in the space. Some of it you have to learn yourself. Some of it is just a commitment to figuring it out. A big part of the readiness for this life is the willingness to commit in the face of the unknown and being able to and willing to tackle that challenge and not necessarily knowing what lies at the end of this road and still being able to walk it. And so you learn along the way. Some of it's the hard way.
Everybody, did you hear that? What an awesome summary of the life of an entrepreneur. We don't know what's on the road ahead of us, but we're going to continue walking that anyway. As a Christian, I call that faith, that God has a plan for me. I have a purpose that I'm supposed to be here for, and I'm going to go forward and just trust that that plan's going to work out. Now, do I sit there and coast? No, I've got to actually do the work. I got to take the next right step. I got to take the hard actions. But ultimately, that path, whatever it is, may not be what I've intended for myself, may not be the path I intended to go, I was meaning to go, I started to go. But when we keep our eyes open and we're staying true to where we're at and we're listening to that trusted support, that guidance shows up and really leads us on the path. So I love that tight connection Alan has between what his faith is and his business life. Alan went on to share more about his particular skill set. And I love what he says in this portion of our interview.
Just as a personality, I love trying to solve new problems. I love building relationships with people and trying to help them figure out how can we do this better. And so that lent itself to this type of work. So on the consulting side, being great at relationship building, being a great problem solver, being good at asking questions, and then also being able to be comfortable to be a hunter and to be confident and eating what I hunt. So those things is kind of what led me into this. The niche has just kind of been, these are the things that I've done as a small business. We reach a problem, we don't know how to solve it. I've got to, in a hurry, figure out how to build the right process, people, and infrastructure to be able to solve that problem. And I've been able to do that pretty successfully for the companies that I've personally been a part of. And I'd like to continue to branch out and offer that service to others.
Way to go, Alan. The ability to fix things quickly, diagnose a problem, provide a solution based on your framework and experience is exactly what's needed in so many different situations. It makes you into a kind of a turnaround wizard. Way to go, buddy. I think that's just really excellent. What can you do that's excellent? I want to challenge our listeners right now. What is that piece that you do that's unconsciously competent? You're just so good at it, you don't think about it. Because a lot of times we don't realize that others are not as good. And that could be a huge opportunity for us. So don't talk yourself out of it. Well, something that comes up for a lot of different business owners is funding. So I went on to ask Alan, how did he fund his business and businesses when he got them started? Let's listen to his answer here.
I think the idea of a self-made person is sort of a myth. I think behind any successful person, you'll find a lot of people who supported them and helped them along the way. And so for me, my story is no different. I was fortunate enough whenever we started the business that cash flow was not important. I had a full-time job and my wife was also working full-time. We've joked that between the two of us, we've had one full-time job between the two of us our entire marriage. When she was dialed up fully, and then I was maybe not making as much in the early days. And then we had a child and she needed to dial down and I dialed up. And really between the two of us, we've had one income for our whole marriage. And so I think for me, I've just tried to be as diligent as I can to ramp up. I think as long as you're able to sustain that while you have a steady income stream, it allows you to be more dangerous. The longer you're able to kind of self-fund, the more opportunities you're going to get to learn and pivot that business early. And so for me, that's always been my strategy.
I think Alan couldn't be more right here. That myth of the self-made person is totally preposterous. We've talked about it before in this podcast. Anyone who's heard me talk knows I've said it. It's the whole reason I started Entrepreneur Encounters. Entrepreneurs need to encounter other people. We need to have those chance opportunities where you come across someone that provides you that next step of information in order to support you. In Alan's situation, he really advocated going self-funded. They figured out, between he and his wife, figured out how to make it work with just one income. There were times when he would ramp up and she was doing other opportunities, or she would ramp up and gave him the ability to pursue other opportunities. Whether it's supporting a baby human or a baby business, there's lots of ways that we can figure out how to ramp up and allow others to come around and support us. Self-funding is the model that worked well for Alan. At Milwaukee Business Coach, we've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, and sometimes it's self-funding. Sometimes it's figuring out how to go contracts right away and have customers fund you. There are opportunities where it makes sense to get funding from a bank, to get funding from lenders, and to get funding from equity folks. There's a variety of options, but I love the idea that Alan really latched into. The longer you can go self-funded, the more flexibility and the more options you have. So if you build your plan to not require some of those outside constraints, there's a reason it's called leverage, and it becomes heavier on you when it sits on you as debt that becomes a difficulty to repay and a strain on your cash flow. So evaluate what you have. We've worked with many businesses that said, I had a budget that's this big and I got to figure out how to cover the gap. And instead we'll turn around and say, well, what can you achieve on the cash flow you have today? Let's realign your business and figure out how to do that and go self-fund as long as you can and give yourself the maximum opportunities. Well, like you, I can't do this on my own. I want to thank Chris Crean for creating the music for both our intro and our outro, and thank my awesome wife, Kate, for doing all the editing to make these episodes available to you. If you like what you hear, I want to encourage you to please like, subscribe, share, and comment on whatever platform you're on. So again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. I'm Brent Halfwasson, Milwaukee Small Business Coach, and I want to invite Chris to take us out.
to take.